in the field of climate change, of course, there's an awful lot of media coverage of the climate change issues. So one of the things I try to do is to bring in some material, often from TV or videos that have been made where there's contradictory views on the climate problem, and you can find a video that's totally would say the whole thing's a load of nonsense, it's just the sun, and other videos that might say we're all going to die tomorrow. Neither's really true, but what you want to do is to put these up as a kind of motivation for why we want to be rational about how we assess things. So that's one thing you can do. In my field, that's quite easy to do. And then the second thing is, of course, to see how opinions are informed. The opinions of the students are informed by what they know. So one thing we tried to do is early on is to just say, well, what's your view on this particular issue? You show them these two videos, for example, where would you lie? And then see if that's actually changed by learning about the subject. Often what they think is that they're at one end or the other. So it's like voting for a politician, you know, I'm either blue or red. And then subsequently they think, actually I thought those crazy guys on the other side, they were totally crazy, but it turns out there were one or two things in there that actually had a ring of truth to them. And then you find subsequently on the side you're on, there's some things that are not entirely true. And then you come to a more rational assessment of the issue. The things that students were interested in even 3 years ago, so you put up the coursework material quite often and you give a lecture and you can tell when they're sort of, and it's not just Friday after a Thursday night out, you know, they're just not interested. And then there's some things you put up when they light up. And that changes remarkably quickly. So you thought, okay, these students don't know anything about climate change, everything will be interesting to them. But because they're exposed to it in the media, actually they start from quite a high level in terms of their sort of background knowledge. And it's only really the new stuff, the really research frontier stuff, that turns them on. So this whole thing about research-led also comes through in terms of the responses you get to different material. They can identify, even at the beginning of the course, what's truly new, because they've never heard about it before, from what they've heard many times before in some colloquial sense. So I think the other way you can switch students on is actually to always be touching on the frontiers of research.
I think the use of practical applications or practical devices, you know, real piece of physics that you can pass around a lecture theatre work very well as part of a lecture course. I talk about a piece of physics called the gun effect in one of my lecture courses, and I find it very useful to pass around a gun diode around the classroom, asking students, based on what they've learned over the last week or so, to try to guess at what this device is used for. And they do remember that. I get a lot of feedback in our returns and our student evaluation returns that they actually remember that example, and that does seem to work very well in a lecture theatre.
When I give a lecture, it's good to stop every 10 minutes or so and ask questions to the students, have them do little problems. It's also good to intersperse the more dry equation solving, which is important, with pictorial examples, showing them on the screen, with videos if you have them.
The point at which I really see the students grow is when I have them in tutorials, when I have them in small group teaching. And typically for my students, I will say to them, come to the tutorials with the things that you don't understand. You know, I expect them to come with their lecture notes and have laid out the things that they're having difficulties with this week. And then we'll sit down and we will attempt to solve the problem. And it's kind of a collective attempt at solving the problem, because you're all working together trying to get towards a solution. And the parts that really work well is when you end up with one student in front of the whiteboard. Okay, it's important that they learn to have the confidence to stand up in front of the whiteboard and actually solve a problem. And then you'll have another student actually stand up and say, no, it's not like that at all. It's like this. And you'll have them arguing over the whiteboard about what the solution to something is. And largely your task is at that point done. You can sit back, you can occasionally very gently guide the conversation, but then they're actually excited about what they do, and they're interested in what the solutions are. And I remember a few weeks ago, one of my students suddenly says, yes, I know the solution to this. It's so cool, I've put it up on my Facebook page, right? And if you get them like that, then you really have, you know, they're enthused about what they're doing. They want to show they can succeed at what they're doing, and they have the confidence to show others what they're doing.
University isn't just about going to lectures, it's about becoming an individual and learning who you are and how to relate to other people. And tutorials are really important for this. So I found this year that getting my tutees to work together in groups to present something or practice a skill that they want to learn, but about something they want to learn, has been really important. And it's been really nice to see them come together and support each other, not just in the tutorials, but carry it forward into their other modules. So for example, we started a mini competition in my tutorial group. So our first years do learn programming, but it is at quite a high level. So we used a program called RoboCode, where they can program little robots to blow each other up. And we had a competition, them working in pairs, and they had to see who could be the last robot standing. And they really enjoyed it, and they actually started working on it outside tutorials. And we actually got other students involved, and we had second years and third years come and join us in the end. And it was really nice to see them come together across years as well as within the discipline.
One of the things I've looked at this year to foster that learning community amongst the students is to have a discussion board question every week during my modules, so that students can go away, do a little bit of exploration, self-directed learning, and come back with their thoughts on a particular topic. So one of those weekly questions was, is there room for creativity in mathematics, or are we just constantly turning a handle? And the students who came back argued their case very vehemently, but it was fascinating to be part of that dialogue and to be part of setting up that dialogue within their community.
I think the most important strategy in helping students learn is to stop them worrying. They arrive at university and they're terrified. I was terrified when I was an undergrad, and the last thing you want to do is stick your head above the parapet and look like an idiot. So I think the most important thing is to talk to the students and make them relax and make them realise that there's no problem being wrong. The trouble with maths is you're brought up to think that the great mathematical sin is to say something that's wrong. And that's sort of true, but you have to get to that stage by being wrong lots of times. So I often say to my students, I don't mind what you know now, I really don't care. I only care what you know when we finish the course. And I encourage them to talk to me. It's difficult, but we do what we can. So I'd say to people coming in, don't be frightened. We're human, talk to us. If you feel you don't understand it, you can guarantee that nearly everybody else in the lecture theatre feels exactly the same way, and they'll be secretly very glad when you stick your head above the parapet and say something.